Hey there, is disability grant money good for disabled humans? Welcome to this explainer. On the surface, the answer seems, well, completely obvious, right? Like, of course it is. But when we actually look closely at the data and the day-to-day reality behind government financial assistance, a much more complicated picture emerges. We're going to break down exactly what these grants do, who they actually reach, and just as importantly, where they hit a hard wall. So let's just dive right into it.
So answering that initial question, is it good? The short answer is unequivocally yes. It's a highly beneficial resource, and it literally changes lives every single day. But the reality on the ground, it's deeply nuanced. We're looking at a narrative of a vital, undeniable lifeline that comes attached to some very hard, built-in limitations. To really understand the impact this money has on human lives, we have to look at both the immense relief it provides and the frustrating boundaries it sets.
Part 1. A vital safety net and the reality of financial support. To really wrap our heads around this dynamic, we need to start by defining the baseline reality of this money.
And that brings us to a really crucial concept. These grants are designed as a baseline safety net rather than a comprehensive solution. Think of it like, well, the floor beneath someone's feet, not the ceiling of what they can achieve. It's specifically designed to keep people from falling into absolute destitution, to catch them when they're at their most vulnerable. But it's totally incorrect to view a disability grant as this magic fix that guarantees total financial independence. Say someone suffers a catastrophic injury and can't work anymore, this money is just the starting point that stops the freefall. It is the bare minimum foundation, definitely not a golden ticket to a super comfortable life.
It's also really important to understand how these lifelines are handed out in the real world. If we look at systems like South Africa's, for example, allocating these funds isn't just some simple one-size-fits-all checklist. Following some pretty rigorous medical assessments, grants are typically awarded in one of two main ways. You've got temporary grants, which usually provide a financial lifeline for a period of about 6 to 12 months. These are absolutely crucial for folks recovering from a severe illness or injury where they're expected to get better. On the flip side, permanent grants are established for profound, lifelong disabilities. The whole shebang hinges entirely on the specific nature, severity, and expected duration of the person's condition as determined by medical pros.
Next up, covering everyday basics and the essentials of living. So what does this safety net actually pay for day to day?
Well, when that monthly deposit finally hits a beneficiary's account, it is almost instantly swallowed up by pure survival. We are talking about the most essential human needs: food, rent, and utilities. Just imagine trying to stretch a single, modest check across a whole month's worth of groceries, while also making sure the lights stay on and you're not getting evicted. The most immediate critical impact of a disability grant is simply securing those fundamental necessities. Without this baseline funding, many beneficiaries wouldn't just struggle a bit, they'd literally face immediate homelessness and hunger. It's the crucial, non-negotiable first layer of survival. Which leads us to the hidden medical costs and looking beyond those basics. Because survival is really just that absolute first layer. For a lot of able-bodied folks, making rent and buying groceries are kind of the main financial headaches of the month. But living with a disability often comes with this severe financial penalty that most people simply never even think about. We aren't just talking about buying your standard bread and milk, we're talking about expensive, highly specialized diets required for certain metabolic or physical conditions. We're talking about over-the-counter meds and supplies, things like specialized bandages or pain management creams that public health systems frequently just flat out don't cover. And think about getting around. For many, hopping on a standard bus or train is physically impossible, which means relying on premium, specialized transportation just to get to routine doctor's appointments. These hidden, unyielding costs aggressively eat into that baseline grant, stretching an already thin safety net to its absolute breaking point.
Moving on to keeping families together and the role of the caregiver. Because this immense financial strain doesn't just isolate the individual.
It ripples outward, deeply impacting the entire family structure. This is where specific, targeted support systems step in, like the Care Dependency Grant. This is a critical form of financial assistance designed specifically to support the primary caregivers of severely disabled children. This grant recognizes a really profound and difficult truth. Caring for a child with severe disabilities is often a grueling, around-the-clock job. It is a 24/7 commitment that pretty much entirely prevents the primary caregiver from entering the traditional workforce. So the grant steps in to provide a financial foundation for that incredibly important, yet largely uncompensated, work of love and necessity.
And the outcome this specific grant enables? It's nothing short of profound. By providing dedicated financial support directly to primary caregivers, it empowers families to care for their kids at home, surrounded by loved ones. Just imagine the devastating alternative:
being forced by sheer financial ruin into placing your child in institutional care simply because you couldn't afford to feed them while staying home to keep them alive. The emotional and practical value of keeping a family unit intact, of allowing a child to grow up in their own home, you honestly just can't overstate it. It's one of the most powerful things these grants achieve.
But that brings us to a harsh reality check: the limits of independence. Despite these undeniable, life-altering benefits, the sobering truth is that grants rarely, if ever, cover the full cost of independent living. There is a massive, daunting gap between basic survival and true independence. Think about what true independence requires for someone with a severe mobility impairment. It requires modified living spaces, widened doors, customized bathrooms, ramps. It requires incredibly expensive mobility aids or medical equipment that needs constant, ongoing maintenance. When you factor in the thousands and thousands of dollars required for this kind of specialized care and adaptive technology, the monthly grant allowance falls incredibly, painfully short. It provides just enough oxygen to survive, but rarely enough to truly live independently and thrive.
Let's put this into perspective. Consider this specific number, $2,400, or $2,400. That is the current monthly amount for the South African Social Security Agency, or SASSA, disability grant. Just let that figure sit with you for a second. When a specialized, medically required diet alone can cost hundreds of rand every single week, how far does R2400 truly go? Once you subtract the rent, the basic utilities, the exorbitant transport costs for a customized taxi, and the out-of-pocket medical supplies, that R2400 vanishes in the blink of an eye. It's a stark, unavoidable illustration of exactly why these grants are merely a baseline. They're a lifeline in a storm for sure, but they are not the boat that gets you to shore.
So, let's talk about the path forward and looking beyond the monthly grant. Knowing these hard mathematical limits, we have to look beyond just the monthly check and actively explore a viable path forward. Advocates and economists alike emphasize that society can't just stop at the baseline safety net and wash its hands of the issue. To bridge that massive gap to genuine long-term independence, this grant has to be part of a much larger supportive ecosystem. Step 1 is having that baseline disability grant, absolutely. But it needs to be forcefully paired with Step 2, real tangible workplace integration. We need offices and remote jobs that are actually accessible and welcoming for people with disabilities. And Step 3, robust learnership and educational opportunities. We need training programs that provide the specialized skills necessary to secure and keep those jobs. It's this combination, the foundational safety net, plus the active opportunity for economic participation, that creates a genuine path to autonomy. So the question we really have to ask ourselves as we wrap up is this: how can society bridge the gap between basic survival and true financial independence? We've seen today that disability grants are an absolute, undeniable necessity. They are literally the frontline defense against extreme poverty. But handing out a monthly check isn't the finish line, it's just the starting line. True support means rethinking our own workplaces, our local training programs, and our broader societal structures. We have to ensure that people living with disabilities aren't just indefinitely surviving on a baseline, but are actually given the comprehensive tools and opportunities they need to thrive. Thanks so much for exploring this vital topic with me today. Keep asking these tough questions in your own communities.